Hello everyone and welcome to yet another episode of Live Coding Until. Hope you're having lovely weeks. Today we're going to be starting a brand new full stack course. We've had a lot of fun in the past 3 streams. We've been messing with and going through the really good Next.js Learn course, which dropped with the latest Next Conf. Brand new course in active development. Lots of things have changed since we started, literally like the day or the next day when this launched. And we made a Next.js app that looks like this, has this dashboard component with skeleton UI as well as things load. We've implemented a customers view as well behind the scenes. It has authorization and authentication with email and password, which isn't ideal, but our imagination is here to expand upon it. But we're not going to be expanding on this just yet, not today, not in the next few streams. We're going to be re-implementing all of this. We'll be starting from scratch. Based on this course, we'll be implementing everything with SvelteKit, a different meta framework. Not because SvelteKit is better or Next.js is better, but because I do think that helps us understand the web and all those meta frameworks and full stack frameworks that we have nowadays. I think that's going to be quite fun. So that's what we'll try to do today. I have created a little scaffold of what the course is going to look like here in the journeyfy.com website. You can find all of those links in the description. But even though it does showcase the one cool feature SvelteKit has at the moment that Next.js doesn't, well, not the one, but the most impressive one, I'd say, the one that gives you the app-like feel, view transitions, which you can see elsewhere in the app, like here. View transitions are awesome. The course content here isn't much to write home about. I just tried to put things together over the past few days, and it doesn't have nearly enough. I'll be expanding upon this. I don't want to just copy and paste all the great work that the Vercel team working on Next Learn did. And I do have my own opinions. I do have places where my opinions differ, or I want to showcase something else. Much like SvelteKit over Next.js or Next.js over SvelteKit or over Astro or whatever, it's not really that one approach is better or strictly worse. It's just that sometimes you have a different opinion of how to do things. And I have a slightly different teaching style. However, for this stream, let's try to see if we can do the same things that we did with Next.js, but with SvelteKit. Lots of the cool things that we can see here, like the skeleton UI and the streaming, we can do with SvelteKit. Can also do view transitions, although this isn't really set up to showcase a very cool view transition. As you can see in this page, usually the most wow thing that people showcase is the hero image becoming bigger or going back into place when you click. And I don't think there's opportunity to do this in the Next.js app. Maybe if you could zoom in on the customers, then you could enlarge their avatar. But that's by the by. We have a long road ahead until we get there. But overall thoughts of the stream, feel free to have a look at the live streams that we've had before. Of course, you can find them in the channel, but I've linked to the first episode in the video description as well. People enjoyed it. I definitely enjoyed it on the day, on the evening where we did it. It took 3 episodes. The first one was the most successful one because everyone loves creating new apps. I suppose there is all that excitement. And the last episode was also quite successful. It's doing quite well, because maybe it was handling authentication, and auth is a real thing that almost every app needs. So maybe people were stuck there or wanted to see specifically how it got handled in this course. Let's see how we'll tackle it today and going through this course again, but the SvelteKit version. So it's Next.js Learn, but it's SvelteKit. I thought it was a cool idea. Some people in the Discord in the chat thought it may be a cool idea. We'll see. I don't know how much I will be fleshing out the actual course content here, because is creating an invoicing app my dream project? Not really. It's a very realistic project because that's a lot of what you'd be doing as a full stack engineer. Likely you'll need to create a dashboard to do something relatively boring, like creating invoices. Who wants to create an invoice? I don't know. I guess you get paid with invoices, so maybe everyone wants to create invoices, but I think you know what I mean. Enough delaying, let's look at the agenda. We talked about what we're doing today. We talked a little bit about the Next.js Learn Awesome free course that you can see me go through, and you can go through it yourself. We can go through it together through the live stream. But if you want the opportunity to actually go through things together, check out the live streams as it's happening now. And now we'll get to the first chapter and start adapting for SvelteKit. So the big thing here is they do start with a template. So they don't start with create next app and the regular wizard that you may start with when you create a brand new Next.js app. They have a special Next.js dashboard template that doesn't do too much versus what the vanilla wizard is doing, but it is doing quite a bit, and it starts you with a lot of components that are already in the code, and a lot of functionality that you just need to uncomment and then you bring it in, which is a different way to learn. It's supposed to reflect the realistic scenario of where if you start working somewhere, there will be code already and you'll be jumping into the project and then asked to add things. But in a real project, people won't have committed out the code there for you to uncomment and then be like, all right, I shipped this to production and you're a hero. However, maybe they have created the component and they've hidden it somewhere and you'll have to use it. It's an approach for sure. I do like this approach, but we'll try to do something different today and write things from scratch. But maybe not. Maybe we'll just be copy pasting the React components and refactoring them into Svelte components. We'll see how long this takes. Maybe it will take like 1 million episodes, and nobody wants that. Nobody wants SQLitis. So even though they're using the create next app wizard, they're getting a lot of code from this code base that they've lovingly created. And we're not going to do that. We're going to do the SvelteKit version of that. And of course, you can always check out the SvelteKit docs and see that it's quite similar. Also, in the previous live streams, I was using Bun just because I wanted to see how it's working with latest Next.js, how it was working with TurboPack and that sort of thing. But now I do think as a beginner, you shouldn't use Bun necessarily. If there, as always with these things, it depends on whether you should use Bun or not. If you don't want to mess with TypeScript configs and stuff, and if you don't want to go through a lot of boilerplate to set up tests, unit tests, node tests, Bun is actually excellent. You can write a TypeScript file, tell Bun, hit it, and it will run it without you needing to set up anything else. You can write tests, and then Bun will execute them without you needing to set up the test or vtest or whatever else. So that's quite cool. But when you're starting a SvelteKit project or a Next.js project or something like that, I would suggest not going with Bun, because there are things, especially with how it handles post-install scripts, that you may not want to concern yourself with. There are a few subtle variations with how other package managers work, and even though Bun does more things than a package manager, the main utility in this course is to have a package manager that people recognize. So this course is going with npm. I am going to go with pnpm just to be a bit, I don't know, easier, I suppose. npm, the safe choice. Yarn used to be the best choice. It hasn't been for years, so don't touch Yarn. If the company you're working for still uses Yarn, they must have reasons, but I'm sure someone is trying to convince them to get elsewhere. pnpm, maybe the middle ground best choice for now. It actually has, I'm not going to go into it now, but it does have maximum compatibility, I'd say, while offering some opportunities for running scripts in parallel and a lot of speed versus npm. So let's try pnpm. I do think you'll find it in a lot of companies if you do happen to start working somewhere. So I'm sure people have experience with this. All right, so we want to create a new app, and I do nest all my code projects and JavaScript, TypeScript projects, PHP projects and stuff in a code directory. You may want to do the same. And we're gonna pnpm create SvelteKit latest, and let's call this one SvelteKit dashboard. I do have Node installed in this machine. You may want to do that. The instructions in the Next.js learn is, I believe, go to the Node website, download Node. Don't do that. That's probably a bad idea. You should use something like NVM. I used to love it for years and it was handy enough. Volta is the thing I'm using now to get a specific version of Node. So that's the reason why you won't want to download something manually yourself, because you'll find yourself checking out projects and creating projects that are going to be needing or using different versions of Node. Node 18, Node 20, Node 16, whatever else. So if you have a Node version manager like NVM, that's going to be taken care of for you much easier than you creating conflicts by trying to uninstall and install different versions of Node every time you switch to a different project that uses a different version of Node. So probably pro tip right there. And the start of the wizard. So even now I will be rambling about a few things. If you haven't used SvelteKit before, then you may want to start with the SvelteKit demo app and just click around. It has a Wordle clone there. You can play around with that and see the code. Maybe a bit overwhelming, but if you want to create a real project, you should go with a skeleton project. Because this demo app is meant to inspire and show you some features already implemented, but we're going to do that ourselves now. So we can start with the skeleton project. Library project is for creating distributed libraries and not web apps themselves. So skeleton project it is. This is possibly the hot take land. Add typesetting with TypeScript is the question of the wizard. And you can either say yes with JavaScript and JS comments, which is what the Svelte and SvelteKit team is doing, for example, but that's because they want to lose the transpile step that and that overhead that TypeScript has on build time. So in my eyes, they are taking in the hit for us to have a better experience afterwards. Personally, I don't really like how JS comments look, and I find it harder to write them, to do types with them versus TypeScript. Then again, I can see people having troubles with TypeScript as well. My preference is TypeScript, so that's what I'll be using. Of course, there's also the third option here, which is, would you like to shoot yourself in the foot and not use types, which I do not recommend going with. So either one of those, perfectly acceptable nowadays. Not using types, probably not. For me, definitely not. For others, they may disagree. So TypeScript syntax, we want. ESLint used to be completely necessary a long time ago. Now it's usually a good idea, but it can cause you troubles. So I am fine with not adding it with to a project. Prettier, essential. I've been convincing people to use Prettier ever since it started coming out, and everyone has been convinced, although it has been maybe a couple years since I had to go into a big argument on why Prettier is a good thing. And that person did manage to change their mind, which is props to them. But I do believe everyone now agrees that Prettier is a good idea. It will format your code. It will let you know that your code has a syntax error as well, because if it's not formatted, you've done something wrong. So check that out. Essential tool. Don't worry about whether you should have semicolons or not, or whatever else. Don't worry about that stuff. Worry about the important things in your app. The looks and the format and the structure of the code is very, very important, but it shouldn't be opinionated. You should have something that is automated and like objective. This is it. This is the perfect code. You shouldn't be wasting time saying you should add a line break or not. Playwright, great idea. We'll be adding this manually because as of the last time I tried it with the SvelteKit Wizard, I wasn't too thrilled with the setup that they created for us, and we can learn a few more things if we add it manually. And I guess the same for retest. The Next.js Learn course doesn't have any emphasis on tests anyway, so we won't be using them for this course, but at the end on livestream part 3 of Next.js Learn, we did that Playwright for some confidence that we didn't break stuff every time we update, and also it caught some usability issues as well on smaller devices versus big. It's a great idea to add something like a browser-based test runner, at least on navigation smoke test in your app. So we'll be adding it later, not now. All right, we made it through the wizard. Hopefully the takes were sensible. And now this has created a new folder according to the name we gave. It created the SvelteKit dashboard folder, and we can pnpmi to pnpm install all dependencies that nowadays we start a JavaScript project. It doesn't really have anything in it, and yet you have like a million things already that you need to have. And that's how far the tooling has come, and that's why the DevX nowadays is much better than it was ages ago. Although I do understand that as a beginner seeing all of those things, you may be like, what is this? What am I doing? I split the windows here, and we can pnpm run dev to actually run our app in the default vit port, localhost 5173, and we get a lovely welcome to SvelteKit here for the skeleton project. So does anyone have a starter or a wizard that when they tell you starts a skeleton project, it has like dancing skeletons or something? Or is that like too much of a dad joke to actually do it? I don't know. And in VS Code, which is my editor of choice, we can see the whole project here. It sensibly has all the code that you'll be messing with most of the time in a source directory, which isn't the default with Next.js, but I always make a point to add everything in a source directory folder. This does mean that you can do path aliases nicely just by aliasing the source directory as well. Although SvelteKit also likes aliasing the lib directory specifically for some reason. Not sure why. There's a prettier config here, kind of opinionated, and I think it's still using prettier 2.8, even though there is a version 3 here, which we are going to switch. We will need to update the prettier config for that reason. Though everything else we have, adapter auto to deploy anywhere. We will actually be deploying to Vercel. This is still going to be full Vercel. This live stream will be deploying to Vercel. We'll be doing analytics with Vercel. Our database will be a Postgres in Vercel through their new partnership. So we're still, even though we're not using Next.js, we are using SvelteKit. We're still keeping it full Vercel. And of course, some key people from the SvelteKit project are working for and with Vercel as well. So and Vercel has first-party support for SvelteKit, as well as other frameworks as Astra. So it's not like you need to use Next.js to appreciate some Vercel features, even though we do miss some for the moment, like the image optimization, which we'll probably get to later in this stream. Right, so from this project, of course, I would suggest immediately changing your README to something sensible. Which I'm not really going to do live because it's boring to see me write documentation. And maybe developing I do link to everything, so I do like having some instructions in case you want to check out things yourself. We don't really care about this. Cool. You don't want this, you can just click around, it's fine. So the prettier config, actually, we may need to go to my other app, Sonify app, we were just talking about. and just copy the prettier config from there. It does have my small opinions about prettier, but most of all, we are doing this because for version 3, the format of the prettier config file has changed. You need to explicitly say the plugins I am going to use are going to be in this key. It's not going to auto pick up your plugins, and we want the plugin Svelte. We are going to add the Tailwind plugin later in the episode. Things that the SvelteKit has, the wizard has set up for us, quite a lot of things we'll never use. Dev starts the development server. Build, when we build, that's going to be used. We're probably not going to run preview, but you may need this. I never run the check and check what's. I just start I just trust the dev server, the build step to catch the errors that may exist. But hey, they're there. And to run prettier, that's also something we can copy. I do find these things a bit too complicated, the default parameters here. So I'm gonna say to lint the project, which is run ESLint, which has some sensible rules, like you're not using this variable, but sometimes kind of useless rules, like they highlight with red by default whether you're not using a variable, which I'm like, chill, like I just declared this variable, I'm gonna use it later, give me some trust. When I see the wavy red thing, I get taken out of the project, which I don't like. Anyway, linting will just run prettier sec and see if you formatted everything. Actually, I don't agree with, because you should just be running like prettier right all the time and having your editor set up for it, but that's by the by. And then you can also ESLint my whole project, and format will run prettier right on everything, which we are going to try out now, because I did bring in my own different prettier config. So pnpm run format should hit quite a few files. Don't have that many, but it hit quite a few files indeed. And that may be it for now. Of course, it's only like visual stuff, so the app still looks the same. I am gonna open this in a new window, make it full screen, drop it with my editor so we can see it on all its glory as it gets developed, as we keep increasing. Hey Paul in the chat, the schedule, I should have it somewhere, but it's Tuesdays and Fridays, and it's around 2 p.m. Barcelona time, which I think currently is GMT +1. So Tuesdays and Fridays. And at some point I should create a Discord integration or something like that that notifies people whether I'm about to go live or I'm gonna go live in the next 5 minutes or half hour. But definitely Tuesdays, Fridays, that's when I go live. I'm gonna open the inspector here, so my floating head is only covering the console logs and whatever else here, and not the actual website. And we should be good. So it's telling us here to explore the project. It's kind of similar to what Next.js does, if you're familiar with that, only we have the source directory, whether you want it or not. And in there is our routes directory, which is kind of like the app directory in Next.js land. Lib is the recommended directory for some utility files, like format date or something like that you may want to have. The declaration file, we'll get into this later. Actually, SvelteKit does do a lot of automatic type generation for us, which is really, really awesome and a top feature of SvelteKit. But sometimes you need to specify yourself that I'm making the user available or something like that. We'll need to touch this file. And the app HTML is where our app gets injected in. Of course, this is isomorphic web app, I'd say, nowadays. So it used to be with SPA, single page apps. You'd only zip this literal HTML file from the server, and then you'd get a huge JavaScript bundle, and then everything would get injected in here, in a div or somewhere in the body. But what SvelteKit does is it does enhance this template app.html from the server, and then there's quite a lot of stuff for us, and only adds the interactive JavaScript stuff later. But you can see that if I were to add like a word here, it should be added up in the page. But interestingly enough, I don't think this gets like hot reloaded because you're not supposed to do it like that. You're supposed to do all your interactive work inside Svelte files. So here, the welcome to SvelteKit, we can say welcome to SvelteKit Learn. You can see immediately it updates and adds this welcome to SvelteKit Learn thing. Of course, in Next.js Learn, you get started with the whole dashboard project, and all it's missing, I think, is monuments. So this doesn't look as cool, but we'll get there. We will get there. And some of these things are conventions that Next.js has made up, and not necessarily something that's across TypeScript projects, although conventional for configuration, if people get to agree that we are going to do this, let's do it. Putting the UI files in their its own directory, I don't like that. Putting normal scripts in a scripts directory, I don't particularly like that. But having a lib directory for your scripts, I do like that. Like I can get behind this. They're talking about placeholder data. They're talking about having a literal JavaScript file or JSON file or something like that in the beginning, because it's more fun to work with literal data. And I often start with hard-coded solutions and then move on to real solutions. I will be linking to a very cool project you can download, you can include with JSON server. You essentially point it to a JSON file that represents your database, and then it's going to be running a server based on the mock data that you have there. So you can have a file full of users and invoices and customers, and it's going to be exposing an API for that you can be hitting in the app you're developing, and you can get working on some UI before your backend server is available, or before you make up your backend service, before you set up your data pieces yourself, which we are going to be doing later in this episode. Anything else in the first chapter? They're talking a little bit about TypeScript. Of course, we have nothing else in this project. We talked about the app.d.env, but we don't have invoice components and therefore invoice types and props. So we haven't really typed anything here. We have started the server, and it starts with this course. And that's it. Next part, it's going to be CSS styling, and it should be good. So let's tick off chapter 1. And I have broken up the second chapter in 2 bits. First one is going to be scope CSS, and then it's going to be styling with Tailwind, because unlike the other project, we need to add Tailwind ourselves and reinforce our learnings with how libraries work and that sort of thing. So here, first they're saying that you can have global styles. So let's do the classic example. And they are talking about layouts as well, which I guess we should be talking about too. So we can create, should we give it the same name? Is it like globals.css? Sure. Globals or global? Global CSS, sure. And in here, we can say something classic like HTML background color purple. That's not going to get used. In order for this global style to be in use, it needs to be imported somewhere. And in SvelteKit, you can import it in a script tag, which we are going to say that the script is TypeScript. And we can say import global, it says here, and then you can see the classic example, our whole background changes. And we can say the text color like that, white, and then that's gonna work. or use hex codes or HSL, like you can do all of those things. So anything in a file like this can affect everything in our application. And that includes, if you have like a style, like a card here, it's going to affect every card, every component, every element that has a card class. Everything is going to be affected by the rules that we put in here. And we have easy access to global components. So if you notice in our page component, we don't have an HTML tag. You may remember that we have the one here in app.html, but not in +page.svelte. All of this content is rendered in here, in this div, SvelteKit body, but it can still hit the HTML element because what we're importing is a global style, so it will affect everything in the app. However, we are going to have multiple pages in this application. So a reasonable thing to do would be to have at least one layout file, and we can start with a root layout file. I can have a look at SvelteKit as well. I guess it's like any layout file, any plus layout file will become the layout file. If it's on the routes directory and not a subdirectory, it's going to be your root layout file. I do believe we'll talk more about layouts soon, but at the moment the word layout has stopped having any meaning. So we can remove the script tag and add it to the layout, and you can see that we have imported the styles here, but there is nothing visible anymore. With SvelteKit, you need to explicitly say where to slot in the rest of the pages. So our layout needs to say, just put them here. And it's similar with how React uses children components. You have to render the children. With SvelteKit, you can say, render them here in this slot. And the cool thing is you can have many named slots, but that's something that I don't think we'll be going into in this course. But yeah, usually on your layout, you'd have like your header, your footer, but we'll see how the stream develops. The DL is the same. We can change the color here to be like yellow or gray or black or anything else that we want. And it will manage to hit the HTML element. Globals.css is a great place to put your style resets. Some browsers have different styles than others, so usually you bring in a style reset that normalizes all the browsers and it will look the same. We are going to be bringing in Tailwind momentarily, which does have its own style reset, so it's going to be taking care of that for us. We may be adding a few other things based on things that Tailwind doesn't have, but we'll see. Maybe that's not the point of this stream. And now that we've talked about global styles, we see that we have like a header here. So maybe we can add this header component and make it blue. This course talks about Tailwind first and then CSS modules, but we're going to do it the other way around because it's going to be easier. And so let's say that we want a header and we don't want it to have any content actually just yet. We just want it to be blue. How do we do that? We could give it a class and then target that class in here, but then we may need to worry about giving it a unique class, and if we happen to have the same class somewhere else, then it's going to affect it over there as well. So maybe we don't want to do that. And a way to have scoped styles, so styles that will only affect the component you're in, is with CSS modules in Next.js and other frameworks. But the way SvelteKit does scoped styles is by default, you just create a style tag. So you can have your script, then your HTML, and then you can have a style tag. And anything you put in here by default is gonna scope things only to elements that appear here in your HTML. So I can say that I want my header to have like a background of these things. I think it picked up the SvelteKit color here, the Svelte Prime color. It's kind of neat. So you can see it over here, and we can make it have a specific height, like 200 pixels or something like that, or 150 pixels. And if we inspect this element, you can see that SvelteKit does its scope magic by adding a class based on the component on the page that this appears. But it doesn't really, and you can see that the style that's actually applied, even though what I write here is just hit the header, the style that makes it happen, like the browser, is hit the header that also has this class. What's this class? That's something that SvelteKit adds to ensure that whatever I put in here only hits the header that is in this specific component. So not quite CSS modules, but scoped styles nevertheless. That's the goal, and that's how we achieve that with SvelteKit. And yeah, I don't think I'm gonna say anything about the color or the padding or anything like that. I'm not gonna talk about CSS variables, unless you want me to. Do they do anything else that's cool here? Not really. Well, they do lots of cool things, but mostly they talk about styles. They do say that they mostly use Tailwind in this project. So that's what we're going to do as well. We're not going to show like even more functionality here. So let's see how we can do the same thing with Tailwind. Bringing in Tailwind should also remove extra padding and some other things, and bring in a specific font as well. So let's move on to that. Let's say chapter 2 styling done. Take a sip of coffee. And move on with Tailwind. Tailwind, utility first, CSS framework. Creator of Tailwind said that he just made up a phrase that sounded cool, but it also makes sense somehow. There is a SvelteKit adder for Tailwind, but I do like running it myself, because that's how I learned. And if you know how to do it like this, then you don't have to worry if the adder gets a bit out of date. And we've added those things. Sure. From it again. And now let's see what we've added here. We need to initialize a Git project. That's always a good idea. And I should have committed everything. Let's say begin a project. And the thing that was added here that we kind of missed. Nothing was added. All right, we brought in the Tailwind dependency, thankfully, and now we can pnpx Tailwind CSS init, and that's going to create some new files for us. So it's created a Tailwind config.ts, but I think we can go with Tailwind config.ts nowadays in 2023. And we can say const config, not from prettier, from Tailwind. Let's see. Will it allow us to find it? I think so. And you can see that's what I was talking about with ESLint. It's like I just created this variable. You don't need to like underline. You don't need to shout about it. I am going to use it. For Tailwind to work, we're going to be specifying where our files that may have Tailwind classes be living. Where do they live? In our case, they do live inside our source directory. And they are going to be either HTML files or Svelte files, but maybe for safety we can also say like TypeScript files in case you have a mapping in a TypeScript file that's like this enum or this value, this ID is represented by this class. In this case, Tailwind will manage to pick it up, scan it from your TypeScript file, although I imagine mostly we'll be using it inside Svelte files. We're not going to be adding anything to the theme just now. I do like adding like a primary color and say that the primary color of my app is like from this palette, but we won't be doing too much with Tailwind, I guess. Tailwind customization here, but maybe we'll we'll see. So they're saying for in our global, on our main CSS file, which we did call global, they want us to add the Tailwind base styles, the component styles, and the utilities. So if I do that, maybe refresh the server. No, we need to do more things. It's saying start the build process, but in order to do that, this should be done by default. We need to add a few more things. We want to add CSS and auto prefixer. It's claiming that maybe we need to add something in our Svelte config, but I don't think that's true. I think that is indeed there, and it is going to pick up our post.css file. We've added this, indeed, that you add the Svelte thing here. And I think we must be missing the auto prefixer, not the post.css file, post.css config. So let's try to add the Tailwind init thing again with the -p flag. I think that's going to create a post.css config indeed. Right. So this one, remove that one. We do need this post.css config as well. Prettier is flipping out, so I may need to restart. Let's see if Prettier feels any better now. Yeah, Prettier works again. Post.css config, it's saying we also have the Tailwind plugin and the auto prefixer. Auto prefixer, some browsers and some browser engines need different, have different prefixes for a few CSS attributes, and auto prefixer does the thing that we used to do manually, adding like -mos, whatever, all those browser prefixes you needed to add for a browser to pick up your style. In some specific situations, you don't need to do it anymore. You just write it once, and auto prefixes everything for you. So now we restart the dev server. I do think Tailwind should be picked up. And indeed, you can see that the styles have been reset. We no longer have a big header, because browsers have different opinions how big a header should be. Tailwind resets everything like lots of popular CSS resets, and then leaves it up to you to decide how big a header should be or your content should be. So we've successfully brought in Tailwind. To prove it further, we can say that the header here can be text to Excel or Excel, and you can see that it becomes bigger. Let's say that this is font bold, And you can indeed see that this does get picked up. And of course, instead of mixing styles and Tailwind, we can get away with saying that the class for this is bg and then a specific color, to use an arbitrary value with a color, although we'd probably add this to the Tailwind config. You probably want to avoid using arbitrary values with Tailwind as much as possible to make it easier to keep your design consistent. If you use arbitrary values everywhere, then you're kind of missing the point of Tailwind and you're going to have inconsistent styling. So even if I miss this, then you can see that this Tailwind style makes it happen. If I were to make it this red or green, then it is going to be picking us up. And similarly, can I remove the height? And I can say height 150 pixels or whatever else. This may be useful if you have like a floating or sticky header. It may be useful to know how big your header is. You can have this in a CSS variable and use that as an offset in other places in your app. But we're not gonna go through that at the moment. And we're gonna stick this into a main class and maybe give it some padding, maybe padding all the way. And to allow things to not get out of hand, we can add a color. We can add like Svelte Prime here, and the moment we add it to the config, then it will know that Svelte Prime is a thing. Svelte is a thing, that's how I named it. So here you go. And if you want to do cool things like being able to work with opacity as well, I guess it just works now. That's kind of crazy. I thought that you needed to specify this as HSL, but I guess it just works. Everything just works nowadays. The developer world is amazing. So we've brought in Tailwind. What else does learn tell us to do? Next.js learn. It's saying to copy some stuff. I remember this sounds like a triangle here, but we're not going to be adding any triangles. Let's look at the dashboard actually. So if we go with incognito, we'll get redirected to login. And I guess this added this triangle, but we're not gonna do it here. We can try to add the whole header. I'm trying to think, like, is this like the same component? Is this a header? Is it a different layout? I'm not sure. But we can try to add it. It seems like, just playing with design here, it has a big header that does get a bit smaller on mobile, and then it has a, I'm not sure if it's grid. I guess if I look at the source code, I will know. I can just copy the Tailwind classes and call it a day. And the cool thing is, if I copy this, then it will just work. While with React, you'd need to change all of these things to be React components. So class should be class name, and some things should be like an uppercase and stuff like that. We're going to be bringing in the globe as well. So I have half a mind to copy this and half a mind to not copy this. Also, this header is not a header, it's a div. Okay, let's copy all of these styles. Let's pass in here and see what happens. So we have like a small tasteful header. It's using the blue color here. It doesn't have any content. We will add something in the future, but we can see that on medium screens and above, it gets a specified height, which is kind of cool. And this thing, the logo, will be adding later. And there we have, it's just a flex column. It looks like it has matching top. So we can add that here. In medium screens, it becomes flex row. Sure. So it's stacked in here. Personally, I do like, they do say that you should try to pick one direction for margin and padding. So either pick always bottom and right or always pick top and left. That will help you from keeping margins hitting each other. Although there are other ways to get around that. But all that habits right hard, and I do like the margins matching bottom. So this looks like it has two things here, like a subtle gray, two divs, no heading element. And we can say, oh, this has the little triangle that we don't want to create. We can copy all of this. Font serif, that is not a real thing. We'll be adding it later. And I can link onto our other course, this one. Too many words there. Give an anchor to my name as well. Oh, they're making links blue. So that's a cool thing. We can use our global CSS to say, you know what, I don't want to specify anything about the HTML, but I do want to specify that anchors should be blue, and then every anchor will indeed be blue. Something that Tailwind kinda possesses is applying things into the base layer, because then the order of operations is better for Tailwind CSS. But functionally it's the same. If you're not using Tailwind, you can do it the other way. Of course, Tailwind has this magic where you can apply a Tailwind class and then it will become the actual CSS rule that you want to apply. So in this case, we would be using like color blue or something, but this one does it for us. And we can have an underline on those links. People do that. And we can actually have an underline color. What's the color? Decoration color. So decoration blue 500. So instead of making the links like this, they just have a blue underline. I don't know if that looks cool or not. Maybe not. And of course, we don't need to explicitly specify this here. But I am gonna give a Tailwind tip. I do like specifying a primary and secondary color. So is it colors? Maybe it's a different file. Or color from Tailwind CSS colors. Here has all of the Tailwind, the whole Tailwind color palette. So we can see that our primary color for this app is blue. So now we can just say text primary 500 and wherever else we're doing blue. So the header can also say primary, and that helps you copy paste things across your apps as well. And then if you change your mind and say, hey, my brand color is emerald, you just change it on a Tailwind file, and that's it. You change it in the one place, and you're good to go. If not, you'd need to go to every place where you've used dust blue and find and replace that with dust emerald or whatever else, which just is asking for something to go wrong, to mistype something. And it's generally a lot of work. When you make the PR and it's just this line of code, perfect. You know you got it. When you make the PR and it's like 500 lines you've changed, you don't want that. Let me know in the comments if you want to pick a different color other than blue for this app. Let me know and I'll stick with it. Just for fun, just to make it appear different. Maybe rose is like more SvelteKit style, will not be in actually SvelteKit, and we can have an accent color as well. Right. So they also have a login button, which is going to be doing nothing. So let's add it. So they have this paragraph, and then they have this anchor that's actually like a big button that we can reuse elsewhere. So as you see here, if I had actually put in primary, then I would have been able to just use the just bringing it here, and it would be automatically the same color. And you can see that it has the underline because it's a link. That's kind of cute. That shows as well, like global styles have this problem or this complication. Now I just wanted the specific things to have this color and this underline, but now every anchor in my app is going to have this color and underline, including ones that I want to be buttons. So can be handy. I think it's handy. I think it does give you a more consistent design, but definitely something to keep in mind that global styles will leak throughout your app. So use them with caution. And yeah, this is also like abusing a few extra elements. You don't need like the extra span. Like I don't think you need this to be like a flex container with gaps and all that. It's kind of that's a bit much. But I guess, like, does it make it like an inline block? Delete. Yeah, self-start. Okay, so that's for making it say to the start of this flex container. Sure. But yeah, I guess that's about it. And we can see it flies up here. Is it because it's an anchor? Look. Yeah. No. Wait a minute. Must be something else that I haven't done correctly. We'll figure it out later. I think maybe that's like a problem that they wanted us to fix. How does this look on mobile? So that's inside the gray thing. Oh, we have it outside the gray thing. That's a problem. All right, nailed it. Maybe a bit too small still. I've said too many words here. So instead of MD, this Tailwind is observing mobile first styling. So you specify the styles in the order of having it look good on mobile, and then you add some special styles for the other viewports. This is traditionally done because it's harder to develop on mobile, while mobile has simpler styles, if that makes sense. So you add the complexity by adding the complexity on the bigger breakpoints. But in any case, all this means is that all these things start by having it look nice on mobile, and then you add some classes for the older breakpoints. So I'm going to say that on the LZ breakpoint, you do start bringing it in. Although maybe not, maybe that's not what I was looking for. Okay, at some point, this drops is the problem. Yeah, so at MD, this becomes not a column, becomes like a row. And that's not necessarily what I want. Or are they doing the same trick again? Right, so here they're saying that on MD, the width should be 2/5 and have bigger padding, but is that a bit much? Should it be 3/5? Is that like a real thing? Anyway, don't worry too much about the designs. We'll get to it eventually. What do they actually want us to do? They want us to add the triangle. So I think that's it. We're not going to be bringing in any images or anything else by now. So I think that's it. I guess that's why I was messing with this. I wanted to make this look kinda acceptable. But hey, that's fine. We gave the Tailwind tips. Still, tell me a Tailwind palette color and I will add it. My next sip of coffee. I will keep it on the customizing colors thing here, and you can have a look at the fun colors that they have here. I have gone with like rose here, but can be anything in the world. They have blue. We can do sky, so it's like almost the same, imperceptible. But next chapter is going to be optimizing fonts and images. So that should be a fun one. And I have split it in 2 places. Because I've talked about optimizing fonts. The thing about this course is that the theory is awesome, especially on this chapter. They have a lot of visual examples explaining core web vitals and what's cumulative layout shift. And of course, they do have some interactive sections, some context switching moments that are critical when doing workshops and any sort of learning activity. It snaps your focus back and you get extra attention span. And maybe I should think about something for the streams. I guess having you vote on things would be something like that. Or me taking a sip of coffee or snapping my fingers. That's also throws you back into attention. So that's a cool trick. But we have gone through the theory on the previous streams, and I have a video all about this, specifically about adding optimized fonts, how you should be loading fonts in apps like SvelteKit. And not to tout my own horn, but it's good. Of course, even for my own videos, I have to watch ads, which is kind of silly. But yeah, have a look at this video. They do take a lot of effort to edit. But when they do come out, I do think it's great value for the time you put into watch them. I try to minimize the time you need to go through it as much as possible. And I think I remember by heart how to do this. But also I do explain the theory like they do explain in this chapter as well of why you should do this. Fonts are like the tip that you usually get when you have professional, when you have an agency go through your site and suggest what you can do for SEO or for better rankings at Google and whatnot. They will educate you about core web vitals and usually tell you the way you're bringing in fonts by using a CDN or another some domain outside of yours is not optimal. And an easy change you can make is optimizing your fonts. Unlike optimizing your images and other things you can still do, the easiest thing I find is optimizing your fonts. So that's what we're going to do. Next.js has an excellent first-party solution of how to do this. SvelteKit doesn't, but we'll make it work. Because there is this thing called font source, which makes Google fonts and other free fonts available for you as npm packages. So we're going to inline them. And we're going to be bringing in a variable version of inter, the inter font. Just before I did that, I should have committed and say it's chapter 2 done. So we brought in this font, and how we bring that in is by adding this style, by adding this import somewhere in our app. And somewhere, since we do want this font everywhere in our app, could be our layout file, our root layout file. So if we bring in it here, it will be available everywhere in our app. And we can have a look on the right to see that nothing changes, because maybe this gets like a bit clearer, because the default font for Tailwind is indeed the inter font. So we don't need to do anything more. We don't need to specify anything in the Tailwind config or anything like that. And I do have the inter font available in my system. So that changes nothing. But for a user that didn't have that font, then that would change. They would be seeing something else. They would actually be loading the inter font instead of their system fallback font. Am I currently multitasking? Is the question from Paul. I don't know how you mean. I am trying to go through this course while also looking at the chat. So maybe, if you see it like that. And believe it or not, fonts optimized. They do ask us to bring in another font. Should we specify this? Maybe we should actually be specifying this because it's inter variable that we want. So let's actually go to the Tailwind config. And we can say font family, the sans font should be inter sans serif. And nowadays you can also put in a string here. So we want inter variable and then falls back to sans serif. And that, again, since it's nothing, but in reality, users that don't have the inter font installed would be getting it thanks to what we've done now. And if we look at the computed font family, this is the thing that should be inter variable. So let's see if it's the dev server that is messing things up here. Did I just miss the keys? Yeah, of course, it should be inside the theme key. So now, finally, I actually did this correctly. So if you look at my Google Fonts video, then I go through the steps correctly instead of what I did now, which was a bit of a samples. But yeah, specifically because we're bringing in a variable font, we should go, or if you were using any other font other than inter, which does happen to be the Tailwind default, go to your Tailwind file after having imported the font that you want in your core layout file. Go to your Tailwind config, and in the theme key, you can specify font family sans as your sans font, sans serif font. You want to use inter variable and fall back to sans serif. You can also put it inside the theme extend key, but this is a situation where I want to be explicit about the fonts that are available in my app, so people will not be making up like extra keys. I haven't specified a serif font, for example, so I wouldn't want people to use a serif font because I haven't said it should be this specific font. So we did manage to bring in inter, and as extra credit, they want us to bring in Lusitana as well and add it to some specific elements. So the P element of app page TSX. So on this one. So if you're not going to be bringing in Lusitana everywhere, you can have its import be in the specific page that you're going to be using it in, or in a sub layout. So if only your dashboard routes are going to be using that font, you can bring in it there and then keep your main marketing page as fast as possible by loading in as few fonts as possible. But knowing what this exercise does, they do actually use Lusitana everywhere. So we will be bringing it as well in our core layout, our root layout. So let's find it. Lusitana is not a variable font. So we are going to be bringing in the 400 version of this font. I guess the default is the 400 export. Kind of makes sense. We want to add the Lusitana font and bring it in like this. And we can go to our Tailwind config and say that we want our serif font to be Lusitana sans serif. And now we want to say to use font serif in this p tag. And you can see that the p tag gets this calligraphic style. Not quite handwriting. If I did it without the key, then my browser wouldn't know what to do. In this case, wouldn't be able to find the Lusitano font. But the moment I add it here to the serif class, then that style becomes available to us. The Tailwind class that applies the Lusitano font becomes available to us. And if I wasn't bringing it in here, then my browser wouldn't know what Lusitano is and it would fall back to the default. All right, so font optimization should be done. And now, oh, they do add it with 2 different font weights. But until I see a place where they use it with like the bold version of this, I'm not going to do anything. And what I do want to check, like I don't think they use the serif font with any different weight other than 400. And this does have a different weight. So there it is. There it is right there. So the actual instructions when we're bringing it in here, let's do it the other way around. Let's say that we want every strong tag to have a bigger font weight. Apply font bold. And my browser won't quite know what to do with this font that we brought in because we only gave it the 400 version. But apparently we can bring in explicitly 400 and 700 to available fonts. And now my browser knows what to do with the 700 weighted version of that font. So now we have imported all the fonts we need in our project. It's a great idea to use variable fonts if you're going to use multiple font weights and styles. Like if you have different axes you're playing with, variable fonts are better value for kilobyte. And especially for your marketing page, I would say, can you get away with just the one font? There are ways where you can, even if you have like a logo, for example, then you can bring in specific letters of a font, like a subset, so you can render your Acme like app, or even Welcome to Acme, render it with as few information from the fonts as possible, but also you don't want to prematurely optimize things, so maybe this is fine enough. So fonts brought in, then it's images. So let's try to bring in an image after a sip of coffee. So we are still in our main page, the only one we have. And they want somewhere here, I guess. Probably after this. To add this image. That's not class name. I guess I can double check what they're doing. So yeah, right after they have this thing. All right. And we can steal this image because it's not going to exist anymore from the Next.js dashboard. Let's try to find a hero PNG. Is there none? I thought there'd be at least one. Interesting. other thing what you'd usually do, but what we'll actually do is something different. See, so we can steal those two images, and in our static folder, which is the same as the public folder in Vercel in Next.js, we can say that this is the hero mobile, for example, and then we bring in the image. But this has problems as this chapter goes over. The biggest problem that it has is that it doesn't have a width and height, which is the primary cause of layout shift besides fonts. Getting optimized fonts and serving them nicely and quickly through your own domain or inlined in your app is easy with the Next.js solution or with font source if you're using something like SvelteKit. Optimizing images is pretty straightforward and pretty easy with Next.js, and not straightforward and harder work with SvelteKit. You may need to go into using a third-party provider like Cloudflare images or whatever else and put your images there, and then have that CDN provide the image for you in different sizes, do blur hashes. Like it does increase how nice your site may look like, but it does increase your cost as well, because those things cost money and you don't want to sign up for many things. You just want to sign up for Vercel, and that's it. You let them bill you, and that's it. And Vercel is like super generous with their free tiers. Where they get their money is with big companies. Whenever a big company like Supla or whoever else manages to do a contract with Vercel, they get a lot of money. But I haven't managed to exhaust my free tier yet, and I have like a million projects. Hello Arian, nice to see you in the chat, and that you got this live stream. SvelteKit today, hope it's interesting. So there is no magic image component for SvelteKit just yet, although I hope that in the future they will have something like that available, given that a few key SvelteKit people do work in Vercel now. Vercel has opened up support for their image optimization to frameworks like Astro, for example, but not for SvelteKit at the moment. So we'll have to kind of do it the hard way around. The solution, if it happens to be an image that you do have available in your project, so something that you can commit to version control, and it's not something that a user has uploaded. So a user avatar, you cannot commit that to version control. A user will need to go through the flow and then upload their avatar, and then it lives somewhere else, which could be a third-party provider, and then you get the image, the optimized image from them. But that's a whole different story. With Vercel and Next.js, you will be able to do that flow and have the user upload something that then Vercel will optimize for you automatically. But with SvelteKit, you have to do the hard work. We'll probably not go through all of this today. We will go through what you can do when you're importing an image that you know it's going to be in your version control. This is our case, and there is a link for us on Vite Image Tools. So it's a project that hooks into your Vite config, and you can use it to bring in the width and height of the images that you have there. You can bring in different source sets, but it does mean you need to get familiar with the image element or the picture element, and have inside image element with the various source sets and stuff. And I do find the docs for this library, even though it's such a good library, they are quite confusing. So it is much harder than what you can do with Next.js, which is just read up on how Next image works. The documentation is excellent, and it will do a lot of magic for you, but sensible magic. Again, there is a trade-off of, am I understanding what's happening? And it's always good to understand what's happening. And I think the image component of the Next image component is a case where you do understand enough to be dangerous. Now, you do understand enough to manage to do your work well. While using image tools, I think you may be overwhelmed if you haven't dealt with anything like that before. I guess the first thing to do if you the MVP solution to this is specify with the width and height of your image. If you do have it in your project, then you can look at VS Code and see that, oh, it's this big, or check out the biggest possible size that it gets rendered as. So you can see that now it's 452 width, and keep the same aspect ratio, and then specify that. And then you won't get the layout shift because you'll be preemptively saying, this is how big this element should be, and until the image loads, the image will load, and it will be exactly the same size as what you have claimed it will be, so no layout shift. So that will be decent, but it will still not take care of serving the correct format for the browser that the user has. So if they can use AVIF images, if they support WebP, and you have a PNG here, you'll still be serving a PNG, which is not the optimal format in that case. And that's where Image Tools comes in, or the next image component, I guess. And we'll try to go through the docs again, which I have gone through before, but I always get confused. Let's add this. And soon we'll be adding this in the Vite image config. Yes. The answer is yes. And it is bringing in Sharp as well. Let's directly say that we are dependent on this to make it more explicit. And now we can go to our Vite config and say the plugin will be indeed SvelteKit, but also let's bring in image tools. Again, EastLint is like, you're not using this. And I'm like, I know, I just brought it, like, give me a chance. So let's bring in image tools. And now we should be able to bring in images with a specific format. So the specific side of this image, various formats, that sort of thing. And I think maybe the best way to do this, well, let's just bring it in like this. So we can have a script tag here. I think. TBD. And then we can actually try to collocate these images, much like Next.js has magic names. SvelteKit has magic names as well. All the magic names for SvelteKit are prefixed by the plus sign, so they are nicely organized at the start of any directory, thanks to the plus sign. So SvelteKit will only try to do magic with a plus layout and a plus page in this case. It will not try to do anything crazy with Hero Desktop or Hero Mobile or anything else we put in this directory. It will not try to create a route, for example, which used to be the case in other routers. Which means that we can easily collocate stuff, and we can try to bring in the Hero Desktop or Hero Mobile first. PNG. Oh, interesting. Is it saying that it's saying that it can't find it? Maybe we need some TypeScript declarations as well. Because that looks correct. Let's see if this is going to work. So instead of passing in the thing we have in the background directory, let's see if passing in the source here will work. This bringing it in indeed, and we can pass in specified width and height. So now as the image load, it's not gonna layout shift, And it is smaller because I've specified that I want to bring in the width of 300, but I can do like 600 or whatever else, and even not specify width here. But the whole point of this is that we can optimize the image by saying, all right, the biggest it's going to be is this big. So I can predict and have Vite create the largest possible version of the image that still may be smaller than the one we had before. So this one, the biggest it can possibly be, it seems, has to be around like 760. And let's see the layout here. 720, let's say 720. And now we can try to take care of the different images. So this has also transformed this into a WebP, hopefully. Just open a new tab. This one. And I guess we can see, can we see? This should be a WebP image if I try to download it. Which I won't, let's just trust this. The point is that if I do support WebP images, then WebP is going to be served. WebP does have a great support nowadays, so we should be fine. But just in case we should be falling back, we may need to fall back to a PNG. How do we do that with this library? Let's find out. Or maybe first, let's figure out how to make this underline, not annoy us, how to make it work. So is there like a TypeScript section somewhere in the docs? Is there an instruction of how to declare that this should be accepted? Guess not. I won't spend too much time on this. TypeScript. So they claim that they can do much more, declaring module JPEG, WebP, and PNG here. It's unfortunate because I'd love this to be able to say that what you're importing here is actually something that has a width and a height and blah, blah, blah. It doesn't look like it's possible. Kinda clever. So it's saying that this doesn't actually work because only one star is allowed. And what this person has done is they just had like an end image in the end. And if it has an end image in the end, then it's happy. So let's see if that works. End image in the end. And it is happy indeed. Okay, not ideal. Aaron asks, how there is Vite here? Doesn't SvelteKit use Vite underneath? Yeah, this is indeed a SvelteKit project, and the last versions of SvelteKit have exposed the Vite config that they use, so you can directly go to Vite config TS and add the plugins that you want. So if you want a Markdown plugin, for example, or an image tool plugin, you can directly add it to Vite. Or this is also where you'd be adding your vtest config. It used to be in earlier versions of Svelte, you needed to juggle with the Svelte config here, and it wasn't ideal, but now we easily have access to the Vite config and we can more easily add any other importer that we want, which is extremely cool. Paul is asking, does it bother me that this platform keeps track of how long you have been streaming? Seems like a nonsensical YouTube update. I guess I haven't noticed this. I do use OBS to stream, and it does have a little timer at the bottom that I can see that says 1 hour 36 minutes. And I don't mind. I should be using this more to take more breaks, because the more I've full on been coding for, the less sense I make and the more I ramble. So if I were to actually take breaks every 25 minutes, I think I'd be more effective. So time tracking, kind of good, I would say. I don't know how it looks on your side. So if on your side it just says, oh, you've been streaming for like 1 hour plus, like, yeah, that I wouldn't particularly care about that. But it doesn't bother me because I don't see it. Or maybe, do you mean that it says like you've been streaming for years or months or something like that? Your first live stream was 2 months ago. I don't really know. Right. So what we're doing here, we're not using the format. What I do want is to be able to provide a few different versions here. Another question follow-up before we get into this by Paul Millsap. Was there any programmer workflow while setting up OBS? Not really. Like, I'm not an OBS expert by any means, but I just made it up by using what's in other YouTube videos and Googling stuff. And with Mac Silicon, OBS has had some troubles starting, which is why sometimes the stream is a bit late, but that's by the by. Again, nothing special with how I've set up the stream. I do have like the extra scene where you can see more of my face, and I have like the start screen here as well, but nothing too special. I know that other pro streamers have a lot of cool stuff going for them, including, I'm sure, better way to keep track of what I'm typing. And thanks for being around and dropping by, Arian, and hi to Arian from the future, if you are indeed dropping in to what's a bit more later in the day on the recorded video. Right, so what's the problem here? The problem is we are serving WebPs which have tremendous support now, but we also want to serve a VIF, which is a bit of a better format, supposedly, compresses a bit better, and we still want to default to PNGs as well, which are supported everywhere. And maybe we want to have different versions of this image according to the breakpoint. So instead of just bringing in the 720 width image, we can have 720 and 1080 and 480 according to how big the breakpoint is. But we're not really gonna care about that, I think. But what we are gonna care about is how to specify different formats. If I remember correctly, it's the old directives, and I think it's the source set directive example that I use. So here we go. This is a great example. So for the same image, we are gonna say just bring in the one width This is going to be 720. Here you can see it's also bringing in 3 different versions for other breakpoints, but bringing in as aviv and bringing the source. And I guess I need to bring in the add the end image thing for TypeScript with happy. And I know the source set is better as source set. Great. But can I also get the metadata here? Like we did before. TBD. They are saying that now we can use the picture element. The way the picture element works is it's gonna go with the first source that is supported by the browser. So if aviv is supported, then it's gonna use this one, or else it's gonna go to WebP, or else it's gonna just render the regular image here. What I want is to call this mobile aviv, I guess. And mobile WebP and mobile fallback. And I would love to see, I guess it must be bringing in like the source set now, but let's see what happens. So let's remove that. Ooh, internal error. Interesting. Is it because I didn't do this? Probably. Yeah. So it brought something. I don't want to do this anymore. And this claims that's the way to make this work, but I guess the claim is not quite correct. Oh, I didn't use the complete literal here. Whoops. So I need to say do JavaScript I need to say do a template literal. It's not gonna quite work. And no, not template literal needed. Literal. Let's make this be the source, and here it goes again. It does appear, but that doesn't give it a width height. I guess here it does show that the width is this much in this case. But shouldn't I be specifying a width and a height? Unclear. And as directive again. Can I do as source and as something? I guess not. Ah, maybe the fallback will have it. Guess I can bring it in as metadata here. This is what we had before. But without the WebP format. And we need to do our TypeScript hack with end image. And image. And now it should still fall back correctly, but I can specify width from the mobile fallback and height the mobile fallback. And I think that should be enough. Let's add something here. Maybe here, just to see, does it appear? Yeah, you see it doesn't get pushed down by our image after it loads because it's already taken the specified width and height. So I believe we've made it work. I believe we've optimized this image enough. Now what they want us to do is only have this image visible on the mobile breakpoint and have another one for the desktop breakpoint. So this one doesn't look as cool, I guess, because it's on the phone. It's only the mobile app, but we have another image that's supposed to be for our desktop format. And we could create our own picture component as well that takes some source sets and stuff and then creates all of this. But then you're recreating your own next image, but in SvelteKit. So maybe we won't be doing that. Like, so we'll see. Maybe we will. Let's see if it works first. So let's actually call this desktop. But say, if we say this is hidden, this does work, but by default, this is not hidden. This only gets hidden on the MD breakpoint. So when we go to the bigger breakpoints, it gets hidden because we want to substitute in again the desktop image. So this one starts as hidden, but on MD becomes display block, let's say. Could be inline block, I suppose. And everywhere it says mobile, we want to actually say almost everywhere. They got me. So now on the bigger breakpoints, you have this desktop one that's too small for desktops. And let's have a look. What's the biggest possible size we could get this one to be? should be this. So on this one, this div without the padding is 1302. Wow, huge. Let's say 1280. 1280 should be big enough. I guess the original image is like 2000. So how big is this again? 1300. Wow. Let's say 1400. It's a decent width. So I'd say that even for like the MD breakpoint, like the other image is cooler. But hey, that's their design, so we're gonna respect it. So there we go, optimized images with no layout shift. If you can commit them to your version control, it is possible with SvelteKit, even though it's more steps. At some point, I imagine that the Vercel, they do make most of their money with the other services they provide, so they'll want to expose this to SvelteLand as well, their image optimization. But there are like a ton of image CDNs that you can use in the meantime as well. Especially for images that you cannot commit to version control, like user amateurs. Oh, hey Paul, sorry, I missed that. You didn't need to use my full name. So you've been trying to do your OBS config as well, and for 20 days, and you haven't made it work. I have just gone through the OBS wizard and connected it to my YouTube account, and it just worked. So I'm not sure if I can help with that. I think I needed like to paste in like a stream key or something like that, and then it just worked. And then I guess in YouTube Studio, you create a new live stream, and then if you click manage streams on OBS, it can pick it up, and then you can start streaming from there. But I'm not sure what your problem may be. It's definitely a very confusing piece of software. I know that so many successful streamers are using OBS, and I'm surprised that I guess it's open source and free, so it is extremely good. And there is Streamlabs OBS that has kind of reskinned it, and then it's kind of selling its own version. But I think there is a big opportunity in the creator economy for great, even better streaming tools as well. Hello, M. Hello in the chat. How's everyone? Let's have one last look as well. So Paul, custom transitions and different overlays. I'm just using the vanilla slide scene transition, so I haven't figured it out either. And custom overlays, I think there are third-party solutions like Stream Elements, and those that then essentially they tell you add a browser window to your scene, and then we will be adding, we will be showing a transparent background, so whatever you output will still be there, but when we want to add a custom element overlay, then we're gonna put it into the screen. I'm not explaining correctly, and that's because I'm definitely not an expert on those things. But that's even an opportunity for a SvelteKit app, because you can make a browser website where it's mostly transparent, and then you have elements flying in. And it's a stream idea for the future for me. I've thought about this before, how to set it up in OBS, but it goes into my stream ideas Kanban board to do in the future. But yeah, different widths is one of my questions. Main stack is a great question. What is a stack nowadays? I definitely am big on full stack TypeScript nowadays, and for a few years now. And I do see some companies benefiting from having like Python on the backend, because Python is very big with ML, and it's bug and more hot than ever to do stuff with ML and large language models and that sort of thing. And Python usually leads the way on that. So I'm fine with some projects having Python and TypeScript. But if it's up to me, full stack TypeScript for sure. And now I just have a meta framework like Next.js is equally my top choice with SvelteKit. They have the best DevX, I'd say, both of those, and strengths and weaknesses. Next.js, it's a huge thing how easy they make it to optimize images and how to do the open graph images as well. I think that's a game changer. And even though there are libraries to do image optimization as well and dynamic open graph images, for SvelteKit, they're not as easy to use and they're not as flexible or as powerful, I'd say. So if your app heavily depends on custom content, where you can't just say to a designer, I want a custom banner for this image, for this page, and for this page, and for this page, and you just design them then and there, and then you have something that when people paste into Discord or WhatsApp makes your site look very professional, and they will click when you push to Twitter or Threads or wherever else, then you can get away with SvelteKit. But if your app depends on dynamic content, like GitHub, for example, has great open graph images that gives you a breakdown of how much of this project is Svelte or TypeScript or Python or whatever else. If your app heavily depends on dynamic content that you can design a nice card around, then Next.js is the obvious solution for me, because it makes it so easy to create dynamic open graph images. And there's going to be a big announcement with how SvelteKit is going to be handling translations as well. So I used to say that Next.js also has the edge when it comes to translations, but SvelteKit has gotten there nowadays. So those are the big things. If I do need dynamic open graph images, I will go with Next.js as the meta framework, or else I will try to go with SvelteKit, because I am experiencing some React fatigue, and I do enjoy how Svelte looks more like vanilla HTML and CSS. However, if it's a big company as well, a consideration is how easy is it to fill my company with engineers and hire more engineers. React engineers are more available, more people have more experience with React. So I would take that in consideration as well and say, all right, if you want something that's easier to hire for, then stick with React and go with Next.js. And if I can't get away with just having a meta framework, so for example, if there is a mobile app that the company also has, that means I do need an external API. I do need a backend layer that just does the backend stuff. Then it can be something Python. If it's on me, I would create something TypeScript, and I would use Fastify. I like Fastify nowadays, so if it's a backend API, I will be using Fastify. And I have seen Nest before, and I do like the idea of it. I do think TypeScript is maturing, and it does need a solution that's kind of like Laravel for PHP or Django for Python or whatever else. And Nest tries to be this, but I haven't tried it recently, and I don't like some of the decisions, I guess. So I do like opinionated frameworks, but their opinions need to match up with me, and they are, 50% agreed. So if I do have to work in a Nest code base, it's not like I'm crying about it, it's fine. But not my biggest choice. So main answers here. Please keep asking questions. Helps break up the pace and helps me think on what was I trying to do here. I was trying to potentially bring in different versions of this one image, because now even on like a smaller breakpoint like this, we're still bringing in the huge 1400 with image, even though now it's like only 600. So I'm wondering, is that the source set option? We had it before, but we lost it. Must be directives. So source set, we can give it multiple ones. And then we just pass it in as sources, so it will just work. Also, from a different room, I am hearing a few whirring noises, and I'm wondering if my dog is let loose and causing havoc. But I guess I'll only find out after the end of this stream. Right, so for desktop, what would be some other sensible widths we should pass here? So now, for example, this 1300 big, and we can say maybe like 1200 and 800. Why not? Do things still work? Looks like they did. So in theory, this should be looking into the width of the available space, and then using the appropriate image according to how squished the image is. So only use the super big one if you are on a super wide monitor. While it be bringing in one of the smaller ones if you are using a viewport that's smaller. So I think this means we've done enough for this section. Let's have a look. This is what our homepage should look right now. Oh, they do have an arrow here for login. Maybe we'll be bringing that in. We didn't bring in that SVG. And we're missing that arrow. And it's saying practice adding the mobile hero image, which we have done. So instead, I am gonna be bringing in a library for the icons. And I know that Sadukan, I don't know what this library is called, but it is for React. And yet, I do remember it is using a nice icon set. So I am trying to remember what's the icon set name. Do they have like a blog post or something? Where is it? Not the one I wanted. It shouldn't be in typography, surely. Maybe in theming. It's like something like Lusitana, but I don't quite remember. Where could it be? It's not going to be Lusitana because that's the font that we talked about. Lucide. Lucide. There you go. That's what I want. Another question from him. How long have you been working? So 2 decades. First time I got money for a web e-commerce site was 20 years ago. Maybe 19, like 19 to 20 years ago. And I was studying at the time. So I guess on and off while studying, and then maybe like 15 years of actually being employed more permanently by someone. Things have changed. So they have a Svelte version of this library. Haven't used it before, but if Shadowcan, or whatever that is using it, should be good. And do they have Linux directory? We want the arrow, and we want an arrow right. I guess this one. Don't like either of those. I guess the move right is the one I have that looks most like the Next.js learn one. Maybe, maybe not. So how do I use that one? Oh, copy Svelte. Nice. So let's find the login. And I guess we just bring in that exact thing. Lucid Svelte. Kinda unexpected. It worked. I don't know why it flipped out before, but it looks fine. So that's why they wanted the login button to be like a flex container after all, and have this be in a span. They had a reason. They weren't mad. So flex 4 to center. And that should look decent. All right. So with that done, I think we're done with the chapter 3, which is quite cool. Let's commit and get back to the chat. So images optimized, fonts optimized, and all of that. M says in the chat, you chose MobX for your state management this time, and you always used to use Redux and RTK. I don't know what RTK is. And I guess when you have a pair source and no structure. And I like the Redux, like, 10 years ago or whenever it was cool, but very early on I got off the train. Like Dan Abramov himself got off his own Redux train for sure. It just got too complicated. Svelte, with its store system, you may find has quite a few similarities with that, like observables and observing for changes and sending signals and all of that. And I guess it depends on what you're trying to do. State management will always be hard. I do think, well, we'd need to get into a specific project for me to be able to say what I would suggest for state management. In a SvelteKit project, I would just use Svelte stores, which you can use with MobX even. But yeah, there is no complexity in this app just yet or ever in this example. On other cases, you may need something more. I do find games are nice for that sort of thing, because games actually have like a predefined set of rules and many possible ways to use those rules. So that's a great use case for library. Xstate is one that I liked for that reason, but also that can be too complicated to bring in into a more rudimentary project. Yeah, I remember really liking Nextstate, for example. Right, so next up, layouts and pages. We're getting there. As a reminder, on the first Next.js Learn live stream, I think we managed to make it to like chapter 9 or chapter 10 or chapter 11. I'm not sure. We made it quite far. I don't think we'll make it as far today, but we're making up the course as we go along as well. So that's understandable. So, chapter 4, layouts and pages. Our application only has a home page. Let's do more. We're gonna have a login page and a dashboard page. Great. So the good thing is that Next.js and SvelteKit and Remix and all of those frameworks have inspired each other in what exactly they're doing with the routing. Arguably, Remix was first with a great idea of how to do file-based routing. And then SvelteKit did something, and then Next.js did something kind of based on that. And then SvelteKit was like, oh, we need to change it because Next.js, the way they did it, is like even better. And now they have a very similar system. So if you read this part and substitute wherever it says app with routes, then you really get how SvelteKit works. Although, again, the magic names for SvelteKit are always prefixed with a plus as well. So page.tsx is a special page. It's a special thing. It's a magic name for Next.js, and in SvelteKit's case is class_page.svelte. Oops, this image didn't load. This image is gone forever, but hey. They want us to create a dashboard route. For that to happen, we need to go to source routes inside a dashboard directory that reflects where the user is going. So home is exactly on the routes directory. /dashboard would be in a dashboard directory, and inside, for that to work, I guess let's do it step by step. The user wants to go to /dashboard, and we get 404, not found. For that page to exist, we need dashboard+page.svelte. And that immediately resolves, kinda. And we can prove by saying hello, or welcome to the dashboard, or whatever else we want. And then to talk about collocation, which we did talk before, and they want us to create a customers page and an invoices page. So what they want us to return here is this dashboard page, no semicolon needed, it's not React. And one for customers and invoices. So to make the invoices route, we need an invoices directory, and then it's going to be a +page.svelte. So actually we can just create the directory itself and then copy that page and say invoices page. And then in the dashboard, we can say customers and paste in a plus page.svelte and have the customers page. And now we can only manually navigate to them. But if we go to invoices, we're indeed in the invoices page. And if we go to customers, we are indeed in the customers page. So dashboard, customers, invoices, all good. Now they want us to create a layout. We have the root layout, remember? Everything in our app will be nested inside here, but all we're doing in that layout is bringing in our fonts and global CSS styles. We're not doing anything else. We don't have like a header or footer and that sort of thing. And now we want to have a dashboard that all the layout that all the dashboard routes are going to be using. So let's do that. The name is really the same, only it's plus layout.svelte. So layout is the magic name, indeed. And you can see everything disappears because we don't have a slot. You don't need a slot in SvelteKit to tell it where to render things, and we're just rendering the customer page right here. And they want us to actually have all these things. If we rename class name to class, then we should be good to go. And I guess they're gonna tell us where to render the children. Yeah, here. So, but in React, it's children. In other frameworks, it's slot. Side nav doesn't exist. Too many slots. So we'll need to create that. The side nav is actually a bit of a complicated component, but we're not gonna be copy pasting stuff here. Let's create a side nav. Svelte. Actually, we can make this a nav component. And the layout, I guess here, call this side nav. Although I would just call this nav, I guess, because if you notice in the deployed app, if we actually go here and we go to the mobile breakpoint, the side nav is actually top nav, so that name doesn't make too much sense. So let's just call it nav. And after calling it nav, I need to change this name too. And everything is fine and dandy. And we can actually check like, all of this here. Steal all of this HTML. Say we're gonna edit it, but actually what we're gonna do is copy it wholesale. Okay, we're getting somewhere. And we have an A tag. And the SVG becomes current color. But I guess we can bring it on this in a different way. I wonder why this doesn't become smaller. I would have thought that it would be kind of contained somehow. I don't want this to be a nav element. So let's delete this SVG for now. also delete this SVG for now. And this we won't be doing inline SVGs. And let's make this a bit bigger. And get somewhere. And the sign out is doing like some crazy Next.js server actions as well, which we're not gonna do for now. But we will be messing with in the future, I'm sure. So in our layout, have we set things up correctly? And if yes, why does it look kind of weird? So the side nav is there. We're bringing the side nav like this. Did I steal the correct side nav? I think so. I think it's just this, right? Yeah, so you have this and you have this. Which is fair enough. But something seems like it's not flexing. Doesn't look like this is flexing hard enough. It does become a side nav at some point, which is fair enough. Like this PG primary doesn't seem like it's getting applied. I am reading this file. What are we missing? Are we missing something in this layout file? We shouldn't be. Ah, do we already have this? I think so. I think so. Maybe not. So wait, what did we delete? Snap W full flex none. Is that the same as in our layout? Yeah, so we definitely don't need that. And we start with flex H full. Which should be all we got here. And yet, doesn't quite seem to work. Like this H full doesn't seem to be respected. sometimes Tailwind does flip out. So, oh no, I knew this may happen. So all it was Tailwind was flipping out. If things don't work, restart the server, and maybe they will. So this be part of the nav component? I guess they think no, so I will think the same. I will call this nav. Let's look at the Tailwind classes and see if there's something I don't quite understand. And also let's bring in the icons. So Lucide, let's look at the icons. Globe. Cool. Be a bit bigger. Maybe a lot bigger. How do I specify a size to this library? I give it size. Easy enough. So that looks reasonably big. I guess in reality it is unreasonably big. Maybe this big. And again, we probably don't want an underline here. None. Maybe that's not the class that we're looking for. It's like no underline. Sure. No underline. All right, getting there. And then for home, I guess we have a house. And I like this house, home. It is quite smaller. So home. Did it bring it in from the correct place? Indeed it did. Now we have the home icon. I see. here for invoices, they have a pages thingy. Pretty much they have like an invoice. They have a pages, page, docs. Try to find the next one. This one, files. So look close enough. Yeah. Here we go, getting there. And the last one is like a people type of icon. Group. Crowd. Like it doesn't want 3 people. Customer, person. Let's use users too, I guess. And we have a power sign as well for sign out. So yeah, this one I guess should work. Copy this T, I want to copy the Svelte component. Now it remembers the signs that I selected all of them, which is handy. Alright, so sign out here. Excellent. And the mobile styles look applicable now. These are not accessible. We found those with our Playwright tests in the previous episode. So actually, you can get away by giving these anchors an area label. So then screen readers will be able to know where this is going. And because some people can't see icons because they're using screen readers and they can't really tell what this is. But we'll fix that later. Like, we'll make the point again. Although I'll do a quick pause and see what my puppy is doing because the noises are very worrying. See you in just a bit. We're back. Puppy did. We are back. Puppy did go to town with the controller. Maybe I should have gone there sooner, but hey, it happened. And if we need to cut the stream, we'll let you know. Those sounds weren't sounds like those Scott made before, and she thought that this was a toy, sadly. Oh well. So, does the routing work? Looks like it does. We can go to the various pages we created now easily. Nice. What do they want us to do next? Created a dashboard layout. It does look everything. It does look like this now. And it's saying that the layout won't re-render. So if we're looking at panes, then we'd see that only this part of the page renders. I guess that'd be a good point to showcase our view transitions. Because that will be the end of this, and I believe I had it as planned to talk about. I know the next chapter is about navigation, so we'll actually do it there. So this is it. We go to the dashboard, it looks like this. On big pages, you can see that this gets in. The active route is not quite showcased now, but I believe we'll be doing this shortly. And mobile does look quite nice, although it's not accessible because we haven't added labels yet. I do believe, though, that's all this chapter wants us to learn. And we can move on to the next one, navigating between pages. Of course, Next.js has a magic link component that thankfully they have changed. It used to be that you would render the link component and then inside you'd have an A tag, an anchor tag. But you'd need to have the href on the link component and then it will magically put it in the anchor tag, which was nuts. But we all make mistakes and they've changed how that works. In any case, in Svelte and SvelteKit, you do not have a magic component. You just have an anchor tag and then it magically will understand whether you're navigating within your website, within your app, and then it will do some sort of its own magic, or not, and then it will just be a regular anchor tag. It does have like some things that you can define. So if we have a look at anchor navigation, somewhere there is a method to navigate, but they must be talking somewhere about how you can preload the data or not. There you go. So your regular anchor tag can have data attributes that say what should happen with this link. In our app HTML, we're saying that whenever the user hovers over something, SvelteKit will preload the next route, and therefore the user experience would appear faster. It may appear instant. You can change the behavior to happen for every visible link, actually. So the moment it's in the paint, in the page, it will eagerly be preloaded. But you don't want to go overboard with that. So there are some special things you can add to your anchor routes if you wish, even with SvelteKit, but the point is that you only use the regular anchor component. And therefore, we won't be bringing in this, we won't be replacing things with link because it just works, but we can make sure that we show the correct active path in our site nav. So you can see that now we navigate to another directory, and yet it looks like we're always on the home page, which is on the home dashboard page, which is not the case. Which is not the case. So what they want us to do is use path name, which doesn't exist in our case, and then there is the class names helper that they have, which is supposed to use to work with Tailwind as well, and I guess we'll bring it in, or maybe not, because SvelteKit has and Svelte has its own way to conditionally apply classes, so that's what we'll actually be doing. But how do we know what is the current path name? And I guess what they're doing here is that instead of having separate anchor tags, they actually are mapping through some routes here. So we could recreate that, I suppose. And passing a link and an icon. But it does become a client component because it uses a hook. This is kind of interesting. So the links are all in here, in this div, including the sign out. So this could be like an unordered list as well, but maybe that's like too complicated. Nobody wants to do that. But we can copy all of this, remove it. Looks like we cut the correct thing, put it here. Import all of this to the other file. Bring nav links here, and then they're back, and maybe that's like a decent separation of concerns, or code compartmentalization. Because what I also want to do is to say that the links are an array, and each item has a name or label, like home. I've added those labels, so it's gonna work. And the href is gonna be none. Or dashboard, rather, apologies. And it's gonna have an icon. As well. And I think that's it. And we want the same for 3 more. The invoices and customers. The icon is going to be users 2, and the invoices is going to be the pages component, the files component. And instead of repeating all of these things, you can just have the one anchor and say, and iterate. Say each links as link, then render it like this. But the label is going to be dynamic. And used here as well. And the href is going to be dynamic, used here. And the icon is going to be dynamic. This as well. And the icon is going to use the Svelte component, the magic thing. And this thing where you pass in this attribute, what component you want to be. So Svelte component, this is going to be the icon that we're going to be destructuring here as well. and we can remove the other anchors. And we can see that all of them are active or look active now. But we can account for that and just only apply like this different sky when they are active. And so what were they doing? And also they're changing the way the primary gets set. Exactly are they doing? Yeah, so these two classes should be conditional, is what they're saying. So only if we are on the correct route. But they should have some backgrounds. So SPT Sky 200 is what they actually wanted, I guess. We can make it be like this. So these are the conditional classes. So these two conditional classes we're going to apply them conditionally. The way you do that in SvelteKit, we can create active classes thingy. That's going to be these two. And if we say true, then they should get applied. Maybe that's not how you use active classes here. Maybe it's like class and then the classes. Look it up. Did lose the Wi-Fi for a moment there. It's kind of crazy. Svelte conditional class. Haven't done it in a while. That's not how you do it. Yeah, you just need to prefix it with class. All right. Or maybe not. Do you need to do this? Like, what's the magic there? There must be some magic syntax. All right, that seems to work. So instead of doing it up here, we can do it in line. Forget this ever happened. Maybe not. But directive. I'm sure that it doesn't have to be like just one thing. start again. It doesn't see it, so it will apply like that class. Guess we can mix in like a style and say active apply it's primary, whatever we had here. That's active true. Now everything's active. Stream hopping, I'm not sure. So when this is true, then we do this. Then when it's false, this has a different color. We're not using this anymore. And I guess we wanted to have a regular color as well. So what's the regular color? Text black? Sure. So now let's finally make it conditional. Like they wanted us all along. But how do you get the path name in SvelteKit? Should be in navigation helper. Or I can have a look in a different project too. So how do I do it in my Zonify project? I'm sure it will be useful to see. So it's in the page store. There you go. Page URL path name. We need to bring in the page store. From the app stores. And if the page URL path name is exactly this, then we should be active. And indeed, we did it. All right. Getting back into it. So as we navigate, the correct nav gets underlined. Clearly I'm running out of steam, but we're getting there. I believe they're talking about automatic code splitting and prefetching. SvelteKit does it in its own thing. We talked about prefetching as well, according to the attributes you can give to your whole app or a specific anchor. But what may be cool to do now, and a big reason to use SvelteKit over Next.js, or if you are using SvelteKit and not Next.js, definitely use the View Trace Instance API. I do have a video on that. Because it does give you the app-like feel. It's something very noticeable. And also the example in my page as well, we're talking about this. You click on a link and then it hops around like the hero element. So the thumbnail does go big into the page. You can do this even with the headers. It's a little touch that makes your app look wonderful, more professional, more native, I would say. Doesn't work with every browser yet, so notably Safari doesn't support it yet, but it's coming. So if you are using SvelteKit or Astro or one of those that support it, definitely make use of it. I think it does make a difference. So even though we have completed chapter 5, let's add view transitions. We don't have like a hero element or something like amazing to hook it into, so we won't have too much magic going on, things bouncing around, but we can still set it up, and we'll see later in a later stream how to add even more flair. So chapter 5 we completed. And now let's set up view transitions. So again, I do suggest watching my video instead of seeing me do it. So always, even on my videos, I need to watch ads. Because I do make an effort to edit these as much as possible to respect your time and get the best out of your however many minutes, out of your 10 minutes as possible. Like really tell you why you should do this, how you should do this, and when not to do this potentially. I do like the edited videos. They take a lot of effort, but I'm proud of them. So have a look on the video, but we will try to kinda do it live as far as we remember. There is a blog post on the view transitions API, but basically we can go to one of our core layouts, for example, because we need to use the onNavigate method from app navigation. SvelteKit has this available, and it makes sense to set this up wherever we want navigations to happen, view transitions to happen, and where I want them to happen is everywhere. So I will add this into my rule, the layout. So on this one, but we do need to explain to TypeScript that the starting transition does sometimes exist. Let's have a look at my other project on app.ts. I imagine I have added it there. So let's copy like that. We're going to extend the document object, the document global, and say that maybe sometimes it does have a start view transition method that takes a callback. So again, to keep TypeScript happy, we need to explain that document now sometimes has a start view transition method. And even though we are doing this check here, for some reason, TypeScript still doesn't believe us, and we need to rerun the check again for it to be happy. And just like that, we should have view transitions. The default view transition is a crossfade, so nothing like too extreme. But we could do whatever I have in my other site as well, which by default it just slides the pages in, which you'd see in some apps, by applying some styles. And I will just copy things over. So in my core layout here, you'll notice that I'm doing a very similar thing. And I am specifying what to do with the old view, the route we're navigating out of, and what we're going to do with the new route, the route we're bringing in. And I have some keyframes created, the actual animations. So all of this is just copied over. Consistency across my projects. We have a fade out, it just fades out to 0. And we have a slide in from right for the new page. And it adds like a little shadow, but maybe I don't quite want that. Shadow, let's add the Tailwind shadow here. Maybe that won't work here. No shadow, forget about it, forget this ever happened. So I also make the page not interactive while the transitions are happening, which may help when you're running end-to-end tests with something like Playwright, so browser-based tests, because Playwright is so fast, faster than you would believe, faster than any human, and it would click around things before the transition has ended, if it's able to. And by blocking pointer events, then you're telling Playwright to chill and wait for the animation to finish before you start, which is what a regular human would do. So now you can see that we are indeed, like the old page kind of fades out. If you look at invoices page here, you can see that it fades out slightly, and even the header, and everything else gets brought in. But like the header, like or the navigation or whatever this is, shouldn't slide back in. Like that's kind of annoying. Because it never changes, only the other thing changes. The other thing changes. So how do we do that? First, we fix that little error we noticed. So the nav links, we don't want to literally say label here. We want to render the label. So we want to render home invoices customers. And is the design like no underline still? So we should do that too. Cool. The way we can make the header stick is by giving it an animation name. Because then, if we give it an animation name for an animation that doesn't exist yet and doesn't have any instructions on what to do, it will just stay where it is. Or it will try to go to the position it thinks it is in the next page, which is kind of cute. By default, you may get some cool functionality. But what we do to achieve that, I still need to look up if it's like view animation name. I think it's view transition name. So view transition name, we can say that it's for this thing, like this nav, this whole thing. So view transition name of nav. So if I spell it correctly, now you'll see that the nav stays in while the rest of the page only gets in, slides in. So stays in place, everything else slides in, which is quite cool. We will be doing cooler things with the view transitions, but one last thing to see is that if we click to go to the same page again, we still re-trigger the animation, which is also annoying. Even though it's a refresh, I don't think that's what people expect. So what I like to do is block a transition from happening if we are going from the same page to the same page. And again, we are going to be doing something here where we are setting up the view transitions. We're calling this magic on navigation method, which gives you a navigation object. And we're saying if start view transition is there in the browser, then set up the view transition. But we want to do another check. We want to check whether we are going to the same URL we're already in. And that condition will just copy paste. I do believe it's going to be like navigation.route or from, something like that. We can try to figure it out by ourselves, maybe fun. So navigation dot from URL, is it navigation to URL? Or actually, is it not? So the URL we're coming from should not be the URL we're going to. So now it does work when we're navigating from one to the other. Ugh, but this still is not blocked. So maybe we won't like the path name specifically, because URL is like an object and objects are always different pretty much. So yeah, now we got it. We just check the path name here, and we do fly in when we go to different routes. But if we keep clicking, I'm clicking now on the home, as you can see, my dictionary thing popped up. We don't get the transition, which is nice. So little SvelteKit bonus here, view transitions on API, quite sweet. So not only did we do chapter 5, we went above and beyond and added some quick view transitions. View transitions. Great. And I think that's where we're gonna call it for today. There are many chapters to go, but that's what I have time for today, especially with my puppy going a bit ballistic on my remote controller earlier. We're gonna do database stuff next time, streaming stuff, fetching data and mutating data is the bread and butter of web dev. If you can fetch data, render it on the screen, and have the user able to mutate it, then you're golden. That's all you need to be a great engineer. And we're gonna get into it on the next episode of this. So we'll set up a database, most likely using Prisma, fetch some data, render it, stream it. We're not going to do partial pre-rendering, which the next course wasn't doing anyway, but they were talking about it. Then, if we have time, we will be adding search and pagination. We'll see. And then we can mutate the data, handle some errors, and improve accessibility, all those things. I do think we'll need a separate stream for authentication and metadata. Almost certainly. But that's it. Like chat, you have a chance to tell me something before the stream ends. It's been a pleasure for sure, but the floor is yours. Is UI state a real thing? I don't know how you mean. If you mean like state in the URL, so keeping your state in the URL, your UI state in the URL, yeah, that's a real thing. That's a way to do it for sure. And they are definitely doing it for the search and pagination example here, and we're going to use it in the next stream with this. So in the pagination example, they are keeping the state in the URL parameters. So your query, as you're typing to search, it stays into the URL, gets updated there, query equals Johnny or whatever else. And the page of results you're on also makes it into the URL. So that's one way to keep the state, which may be like one way to keep UI state, if I understand correctly. But of course, state management, as we talked earlier, is like a huge thing. As Em was talking about, Redux was a super popular state management tool that was too much boilerplate after a point after React itself became better at managing its own state with its native methods like set state, like use state hooks, all those things. I don't think you needed a reducer. I don't think you needed to bring in Redux for state management at that point. But there are other tools like Xstate that I really enjoyed, MobX, those sort of things. When things get too complicated for you to keep in your head, then you bring in a state management solution. For things like search and pagination, having your URL be your state manager, I do think it's a great solution and an elegant solution. But when you're designing things like games, when you have too many possible stages to keep track of, it's nice to have a tool that knows exactly like that we are in this point, and then That means that we can accept these inputs, we can transition to these other steps, we can do this and that. If you have multiple forms, that sort of thing, you may need something else. Xstate, which I mentioned a few times, is great for that because it has a nice visualizer as well that has it changed to stately. So you can visualize your initial states, what's the guard of whether you should go to that state or you're going back to another one, and that sort of thing. So question from Paul, when will my channel surpass 1K subscribers? I do have another channel. It's my second channel, actually. The other channel has like 2,800 subscribers, and I haven't promoted this channel on the other channel. So maybe if I promote it there, then the people will come. But in the past month, there were a couple hundred coming up, and given we're only at like 300 something here, I do think it snowballs. They say that your first 10K subscribers are the hardest. So estimate for 1K, like if you have to ask me, I'd say optimistically 3 months, 1K. Is that a good estimate? I don't know. I guess if you keep liking my content in my live streams, it's interesting that I am doing mostly live streams now and not the long form edited content. But the schedule has been on point. Tuesdays, Fridays, we keep going. And I think that helps. Consistency helps people tune in and build a rapport, I guess, with the host, if that's what I am in this channel. But yeah, Xstate, quite cool. You can actually play around with the visualizers, especially when you're trying to explain the state of your app to someone else, like you have another engineer that's joining their team. I used to do this by hand, like draw out the possible scenarios and what is happening here. When you do like address lookup or when you're doing file uploads, like first you need to do this, and then you need to generate a secure link with an S3 bucket, and then you get that link and then you can upload, like all those things. I find them hard to explain with words and I find them much easier to explain with drawings, which is why I like Xstate, because it kind of, you write your code and then it creates the drawings for you. But yeah, sometimes the stuff you do in your app don't have many steps. Sometimes it's a keyboard press and that's it. Like you click somewhere and you go somewhere else and that's it. If it's straightforward, you don't need a complicated state manager. Which I think at some point with the popularity of Redux, it's like everything. Like let's use a Redux accent for everything, like the tracking, the theme the user is on and all of that. And another question by Paul, of course, ask as many questions as you'd like. I'm here to be helpful. And yeah, in the description, there is a link to this project for sure. And I'm gonna add a link to the code that we've done now, but you can keep tabs on my GitHub as well. And you'll see it's gonna be, I guess, I'm gonna create one like J. Agrippa's SvelteKit dashboard, and that's gonna be it. I think, like, I didn't do it because a different place here is about setting up your GitHub project and pushing it. But I guess I'll just do it because people will want to see the code we're in. And the probably most important question was, as an aspiring professional, IT professional, what avenue would you recommend to understand the right unconventional pathway to being hireable? So I'm not sure if it's an unconventional pathway. I definitely have helped people that have career change into IT and software engineering, and I take great pride in that when I have people from like customer success or wherever else that say, oh, I like what you people are doing and I want to join, but it's intimidating. And then I just convince them and show them that it's not really that intimidating. You put in the time to learn, and step by step you learn more and you grow your skills, and then you're more hireable. It's like seeing someone solve a Rubik's Cube, where if you don't know what it works, you see a mixed up Rubik's Cube and you don't know where to start and what to do. Maybe you can do one phase kinda, but you don't really know. But then if you know the steps and you can identify the patterns, you can solve any problem. But besides seeing code bases and projects and being able to understand them, another part of being hireable, sadly or not, is having interview skills. So that's a separate thing. It's not just I know how to do code well or deliver projects or whatever else. You need to prove to the interviewer that you can do those things. You need to present yourself well. There are so many things that you need to do there. And I don't think that's like an unconventional path. Like try to strengthen how you present yourself, have a great opening line of who you are, what's been your journey, like in just a minute or two, explain what your career has been so far and where you want your career to be. And then when they ask you questions, answer with honesty. And if you don't have the great answer, then write it down after the interview and try to have a great answer for that next time, because you'll hit that question again or a similar question. So I don't know if that's unconventional. Yeah, I do think it's general advice that you do need a specific skill set for interviews. So keep doing them. I know that it's hard to be rejected if it doesn't go along well, but you can keep applying to as many comments as you want. You can reapply to the same company, and it happens to everyone to get a rejection. It only takes one acceptance to actually be hired. So there you go. So just a few answers there. I'll try to get a better answer for you later. But off the top of my head, that would be it. So step by step, try to learn things and understand things and work on presenting yourself there. Interview sessions recorded. I haven't done, I have thought about this in the past on either doing like a mock interview with a friend, but most people don't want to do that because lots of people are intimidated by the interview process as well. But I could have someone else like pretend interview me. But of course, it's going to be different when it's pretend interview. So ideally, I would want a real company to interview me or tell them, oh, I'm going to be recording this and then releasing it on YouTube or something like that. But I just don't think it's going to happen. The companies I usually work with are a bit too picky about that. Any LLM self-regulating AI other than ChatGPT? I can't name drop any other ones, but I know that lots of vendors have their own versions of that. Amazon for sure has one, but I don't remember what they call them themselves. Personally, in my projects, I do use ChatGPT. And do they just call it LLM AI? I'm not sure. In this Zonify project, you can actually ask like to set up view transitions with SvelteKit. And this thing, I have fed some of my video transcripts, and it reads from them and replies like myself or like my assistant. And I do have a video in my other channel about the ChatGPT 4 with SvelteKit as well, which you may find interesting too. Because we built like a realistic project like this one that is trying to greet you like I would. So if I add like Paul there, it's like hello world, but it's using ChatGPT. So immediately it's like much cooler. And it's pretending that it's me, so it's gonna try to make like a pun. Hey Paul, good to see you, pal. So glad we didn't have to pull apart to meet. Hope things are going possibly well for you. Keep up with that positive energy, just like your name suggests. So yeah, it doesn't do like great puns for every name, but it is trying. Let's see if full name would get you somewhere else. This is a huge answer, so I'm not gonna read it out live, but I do like the sign of like keep coding, keep smiling. Particular webhooks employers use during the vetting process. Webhooks, how do you mean? Is there a good definition for blog posts on GitHub? So things that you should be reading beforehand before you start interviewing. Not really. There are quite a few places like Code Wars that you may want to explore, because lots of companies love like pub trivia style interviews and pair programming challenges that aren't actually pair programming, but it's watch me do code type of question, and then one or two people are watching you do some code and solve a puzzle like the ones you may find on Code Wars. So reverse the string or recursively find the Fibonacci number or whatever else. And it's very likely that one stage of the interview will have that. In general, it depends on the company and the company values, whether they're going to ask you about being a self-starter and that sort of thing. And in the description as well, you will find whether they want you to be like a GitHub expert or whatever else they may need, like React expert, like backend, Python, whatever else. It's been a while since I've done a Code Wars challenge. They've redesigned. Now they're powered by Andela, which I don't know what it is. Personally, for assessing engineers, I do like more interactive puzzles. Like I write the tests, the first test, you implement the first part. Then I ask you to write a test, and then I will implement that part. But I do know that most companies say that they value TDD, test-driven development, but in reality, no one does it. So I'm not sure. It depends on the type of company you're gonna run into. If you were gonna run into me, you'd definitely be tested on that. Most of all, I guess, I think you need to judge the willingness of a person to learn and to be able to roll with the punches and adapt. But sadly, I do think most companies are trying to like quantifiably test whether you're good at mapping and reducing and that sort of thing, which in reality, that's not the day-to-day startup life or company life. You're not going to use those methods every time. There are going to be other things you're going to be looking into. But hiring is a very hard problem to solve. All right, a few more moments for any more questions, or else I'll sign off and I'll catch you on Friday. And as a reminder, I will be trying to update this with the things we learned from today, things we went over in my opinions, but I am just one person and Friday is only a few days away, so I don't know how fleshed out it will be, but you can go there and see if it has any more content than placeholder content after a point. All right, thanks a bunch everyone for watching, especially for the chat support. It's always nice to go through these challenges while having some company. People watching or coding along with me or just having me on the background, always nice. A great pleasure indeed. Hope you have a lovely rest of the week, and I'll catch you all on Friday. Bye.